movie.
Oh, that's easy. Prey.
Yes, but Prey 2.5 is even better.
Welcome back to Boys Bible Study. This is another spooky Halloween Christian horror edition of Boys Bible Study. We will be spotlighting horror movies, Christian horror movies, all through the month of October. As always, I'm Ash. I am here with
Scott
and Julian.
And who better do we know to talk about the Christian horror world with us than our friend Joey Gallimore, a horror expert and creator of the blog Camera Viscera. Joey, welcome back to Boys Bible Study.
Ooh, thank you.
If you don't believe in ghosts at the beginning of this podcast, or if you don't think maybe their existence is supported by the scripture, then we're going to have you thinking something else by the end of this. Gentle listeners. But if you have been following Boys Bible Study since the beginning, or you've recently started listening and you're starting from the beginning, you may know that we actually had Joey on very early on to the run of this podcast. You were on with us all the way back in the beginning of 2020 talking about the horror movie Prey. And we're very excited to have you back for this movie, Paranormal, which is by the same director. But before we get into that, Joey, have you been celebrating Horror Month or the month of October in any special way this year?
It's funny because I was just thinking about that, how time has just sort of all blended together this year, and I can't believe we're already halfway through October, but I really haven't been doing anything specifically spooky. Like, I've watched a few horror movies here and there, but, mainly just sort of seeing whatever's on Tubi, basically.
Best website.
Oh, hell yeah.
100% best website.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Are we supposed to be doing costumes this year?
Yeah, you can do costumes. Why can't you do costumes?
I don't know.
It's a free country.
Just feels like nothing's happening.
I mean, yeah, sure. If you want to represent the pagan holiday known as All Hallows Eve and get involved in satanic rituals and demons.
Right.
Is it bad if you go as Jesus to a Halloween party? Like, what does that mean?
Yes, that's bad.
Yeah, that's a trick question. You shouldn't be just buying into the Halloween lie at any case.
Correct.
I mean, you could say it's proselytizing, I think.
Hey, that's the oldest profession in the country.
Yeah, well, definitely a weird time to be just commemorating any yearly event. Every season, just as you said, sort of feels all blended together. But you watched Prey with us at the beginning of the year. What do you remember about that movie? Just like, not specifics, but like what vibes, what impressions do you still have from that film?
I actually remember a lot from it, but I remember, that it was sort of like an homage to Halloween. I remember just like a very Midwestern-y sort of, middle American vibe to the proceedings, like the mom coming home from the gas station with like milk in a bag, some shit like that. Didn't that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like orange drink that she had. Yeah.
Yeah, orange drink. Yeah, and so
we don't have that time. We don't have time for that shit out here on the West Coast.
We just drink champagne out here all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have money to buy any food or drinks. It all goes to rent here.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
No money for apple juice.
But I remember, it was ambitious and it was fun. Yeah, I just remember it wanting to be Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got what you wanted, and
exactly.
But we had no idea what the year would hold. But hey, here we are. So we, as I was saying a bit earlier, we decided we wanted you to watch with us a follow-up film to Prey by the same director and production company, and that film is called Paranormal. And I was hoping, Scott, that maybe you could start off by giving us some of the essential background on the director of this film.
Sure. Well, Matt Mitchell, the director, he before this had made, I believe, 3 Prey movies. He definitely has made 3, and then went to Paranormal. Prey 3, he started doing the found footage style thing. and that continued on in Paranormal. It's about ghost hunters. Matt Mitchell is, I believe, a youth pastor, which is extremely apparent in Prey 1 and Prey 2. And I assume everybody that he has here is from his same church, which I think that they actually said what church that is at the end.
They've got the look.
Yes, they have the look. Potter's Hand Bible Church. And I really appreciated that they gave us a link to that. And you know what? The other thing they gave us a link for in the credits, the Bible study for Paranormal.
Oh, shit. That's right. There's an official Bible study for this film. Can we access that? If it's not too intense, we should absolutely go through that.
Oh, yeah. The link is in the Discord.
Oh, thank God. Okay, we have to go through at least some of that during this episode.
And even though it's from 2009, it is still available, dear listener.
Woo. Okay, we are definitely going to let's make sure we save a little bit of time at the end for that. So one of you already started talking about the aesthetics of this film. So before we even get into the plot, let's talk about the specific aesthetics of Paranormal, some of which it shares with Prey. But I feel like during the when we were watching this, Joey, you brought up that you can just look at these people and tell that they're Christian. Why is that?
I don't know, but I got the same vibe from Prey, especially during the scene when they are sitting in the diner having fries. Mm-hmm. There's just, it's like something about their gelled hair and their t-shirts and their sort of like just the not even a goatee, just sort of like a chin, just like on the tip of the chin, some stubble. And, Billabong shirts, I don't know, cargo shorts. It just, everybody looks so painfully Christian. And it's funny because you were saying that this movie came out in 2009, right, Scott?
Yeah. Yep.
Because it seriously looks like it's from like 1999. There's like it's like a time capsule.
Yeah, it's timeless. It's a timeless film.
A timeless classic.
Yeah, that diner scene in Prey is so iconic. That was when they had there was the guy eating the plate of, I think it was 4 hamburgers,
right?
Which I remember us pointing out at the beginning of the year that like that meal would have cost approximately like $36 to get at like your local diner. So yeah, there were little tells about that, and Paranormal too. It still had that vibe, especially that one character. And my God, it's going to be tough for me to remember anyone's name, but the character who's supposed to be kind of like the cocky one.
Right.
Chris.
Oh, that's Chris. Okay, very good. Chris had like the Ed Hardy style t-shirt and like the like bleached like accents in his hair, and he just had like Christian face, Like right. I can't put my finger on
Christian
it.
Face.
They gotta. You can just tell.
That's like Kevin Sorbo is always doing atheist face in these movies. We need to talk about casting actual atheists in Christian movies.
I thought you were going to say we need to talk about Kevin. I actually thought the lead character in this movie, the writer who was kind of atheist light, seemed like a B-movie or horror movie version of Kevin Sorbo.
Yup.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out who he looked like the whole movie, and it was the one and only Sorbs.
It's so true. He looks like Discount Sorbs.
Hercules.
Yeah. I think that when we actually, so, we can't announce what films we play, obviously for copyright reasons, but when we played this film in our patron live stream earlier in the month, I do remember, I can't remember whom, but one of our patrons pointed out that the actor looked like Discount Sorbo, and actually that person was what made me put it together. I was like, oh shit, yeah, that's what it is. It's fucking Discount Sorbo here. He definitely has that vibe.
He's not as hateful as the real Sorbo.
No, God,
that's why he can't quite pull it off,
Oh God.
I really did think he was great in the movie, though. I really liked the author.
Yes.
Yeah, he was good.
Good actor. Yeah, that we're referring to the protagonist of this film, Greg Evans, who's a novelist, and we will talk about him as we get into the plot of this film. One more just general aesthetic and background thing I wanted to bring up before we start talking about the plot. Just the incorporation of horror movie aesthetics into this film. I'm sure as we're talking about it, we're going to remember specific moments, but in general, guys, any impressions about, what horror movies this was emulating, any ways that those aesthetics combined with the Christian film tropes that stuck in your mind?
Well, first, right off the bat, I got like, Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity. Those two specifically.
Sure.
It seemed like they were going for Paranormal Activity and just the name Paranormal or Paranormal.
Right.
But it felt more like it felt way more like a Ghost Hunter TV show capitalizing on that. I was really expecting Paranormal Activity, but even then, like all the haunting stuff was either like, how the Paranormal Activity movies, they show it through like security camera footage.
Right.
Yeah. But like this one, it was either through the ghost hunter camera person who was either there or not. It wasn't really clear whether or not that was a character.
Oh, right.
Or like totally staged.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like found footage style, but it is very much Ghost Hunter style. And it actually looks a lot like this show that was on Animal Planet for some reason. That was a ghost hunting show. They weren't animal ghosts that they were after, so I really have no clue as to why it was on Animal Planet, but it looks identical. Like the look of it's the same. They must be using the same camera, and they're also visiting some abandoned insane asylum.
It's called The Haunted. The Haunted is an American paranormal television series that premiered in 2009 on Animal Planet. So they could have just been both using like cutting edge 2009 night vision equipment. It was very of its era, I guess. I guess ghost hunting was huge also at the time. But yeah, it was really interesting to see a Christian take on a found footage horror film. And Paranormal was a really interesting study in that way. So I'd say let's get into it. I'm sure we're going to have many other observations as we go through the plot. Let's talk about it, but make sure we save some room at the end that we can get into the official Paranormal Bible study and discussion guide. But who wants to start off discussing the happenings and characters of Paranormal?
Scott, you start.
All right, fine. We start off in an abandoned insane asylum, and we're following a few probably early to mid-20s folks through there. It's all through night vision, and they have some other equipment, EMF readers, I want to say, and some way to gauge temperature too. They keep showing you in the bottom left corner not only what time it is, but what the temperature is, which is pretty interesting because I was not very familiar with that. I've, of course, heard of like getting a chill when you sense that a ghost is around, but apparently getting the specific temperature is helpful. So they're going through the insane asylum, and it's getting a little spooky. Temperatures are shifting all over the place. They come across an unplugged phone that's just ringing. I don't know if any of you noticed that never comes up again.
Right.
Not ever again.
Oh.
It's unplugged, and also the receiver is off the hook.
Very spooky.
Yeah, that's like double the scariness. Because if it had been just ringing and the receiver is just off the hook, that'd be weird, right? But then it's unplugged, so it's like super scary.
And the call was coming from inside the house.
It was the jerky voice.
The jerky boys were in this movie. It was just a prank the whole time. So then they're kind of like joking around because they're trying to talk to the ghosts, and then they're making fun of each other for the way that they're talking about the ghosts. And then one of them gets grabbed by something, and there's a freeze frame, and then we get the title Paranormal. And this is already like 11 minutes into the movie. They're bumbling around this insane asylum for a good 11 minutes to start the movie.
Really quickly, I would just like to say that I really liked the freeze frame effect. I think that's a good throwback to like just old 70s like exploitation movies. Like somebody's screaming and it just freeze frames on them and sort of zooms in. I thought it was a nice touch.
Oh yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
This director is like very competent in certain ways, in like the way that he gets scares or, you know, emulates other horror films in his movies, because like obviously just like meta discussion about this film, but like to make a Christian horror film, you know, you have to be sort of creative with the way you employ scares. And like you were just saying, Scott, I feel like a lot of the things they lean on in Paranormal, but also in Prey 2, is like people playing pranks on each other. Like that's a big technique for him to get a good jump scare in, is like one character just tries to like spook the other. And it's like, oh, I got you, you know. That's a great way to avoid having someone getting their like throat slit or whatever, you know?
Yeah, totally. Well, that's something I noticed about this guy when we watched Prey. It's clear that this guy has watched his fair share of horror movies, because he knows the tropes. He knows all the sort of, you know, things you expect in these movies at this point. So like, he's done his homework. He's sinned. He's watched a lot of horror movies. But I mean, that's the thing, is like he's clearly competent in the aesthetic, recreating what is supposed to be a horror movie.
Very much so. No, I think his films are remarkable in that way. But yeah, so, you know, we have some adventures with these ghost hunters, but Paranormal basically weaves like two storylines that come together at the end. You know, it's good that they established this team of ghost hunters. We will be seeing them again many times, but we should definitely mention the other main storyline that's happening with our protagonist, Greg Evans.
Yeah, so after we get the title and the opening credits, 12 minutes into the movie, that's when we get to see Greg Evans in action, and he is a author. He's an author, previously successful one. We're not entirely clear how long it's been since his last hit novel, but he's having a bit of writer's block and trying to figure out what the next thing is. And he's being kind of cranky, to be honest. Not as nice to his wife as he could be. She's just trying to help, it seems like. And she's trying to bring up to him that their son is up to something again. And it turns out that he is hanging out with his friends doing seances, sitting around Ouija boards. And he does not take it nearly as seriously as his wife wants him to. And instead is like, oh, I should go join in with them, see what it's all about, to get ideas for his next novel.
Before we go any further, I'm wondering, can we discuss the relationship between the husband and the wife?
I think that's a great idea.
Yes, please.
Because it does seem a little contentious. Because, yeah, the husband is of a different, belief system. And he says to her, you know, I know, you know, about your religion or whatever. And she says, it's not a religion, it's a relationship.
I know your religion doesn't approve of this.
My religion. It's not a religion, Greg. It's a relationship.
I know. I'm sorry.
That's not an uncommon thing in the Christian church in general. That comes up in I'm in Love with a Church Girl as well. They make a point to say that a couple times.
Yeah. So, you know, he's sort of the like, hey, he says man a lot, which I relate to. He says like, hey, man, I'm just, you know, looking for something to drink in the fridge, man, you know, like. But anyway, so he's a cool guy. You can tell he's a cool guy because he says man a lot, you know.
Yeah,
and,
he says man a lot, and he hangs out with his like son's like high school friends. And
right.
He doesn't have a job, and he has a lot of skeletons in his closet. And
so he's cool.
He's really cool. This guy's so cool.
And his wife is more she's a little more mainstream. She's you know, she's got the faith thing going on, and when he is, you know, he gets her a keychain as a gift, which I think is a lovely gift.
That scene is so crazy.
He's on the phone. He's on the phone with his keychain dealer, and he's talking to someone saying, I got to get her something nice. No. It's got to be nicer than that. oh yeah, that's perfect. And then in the next scene, he gives her a keychain.
Yeah, and there's this whole thing where like she thinks it's going to be a car because it's a keychain, so she like runs outside and sees a car, and she's like, "Oh my god!" But it's just like the neighbors driving away.
Well, to
that
be
part is
fair,
so
there's
fucking funny.
one single car key attached to the keychain,
Oh my god!
and he put it in like a box you would get like a nice ring in, which was also in a bag. Like there's a lot of packaging.
Yeah.
You could see where she's coming from.
Right. So he's kind of a dunderhead, but he's a cool guy. He means well. And anyway, my point is they sort of are at odds with each other. They seem like an odd couple.
Yeah.
Certainly.
How did they? Where was the attraction to begin with?
Right.
You know, especially the more you find out about this guy.
Yeah. Well, we should also talk about this fateful Ouija board encounter, because this really sets the movie in motion. Julian, would you like to describe the Ouija board scene?
Yeah, well, let me preface this by saying what happens, what's said in this podcast stays on this podcast. Right now. Okay, so here, and let me just say what happens on this podcast stays on this podcast.
Okay, look. Now, what I'm about to share with you must never, ever leave this attic, okay?
You've got to be kidding me. Come on, Roger. Would you just listen to him?
Yeah, really. I want to hear this.
Thanks. Okay, so we've all agreed that what I'm about to share with you never leaves this room, right?
So what happens is, I believe the author father goes up to the attic where his son, and like,
yep,
the son's friends are doing one of their activities, which is playing with a Ouija board, because the son claims he heard a spirit in the attic the other night, and the dad watches them try to contact a spirit, and he realizes that they're contacting his daughter, who must have passed. I mean, it's implied at this point that she passed away. Yeah, he what does he do? He like tells them all to go downstairs, and then he spends the next couple scenes sort of like trying to get the Ouija board to move again.
Yeah, well, it's funny, the end of that Ouija board encounter is so funny, because like, yeah, he goes in as just like, I don't know, his character is just so fucking funny, because yeah, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna hang out with these high school kids as like inspiration for my book. Like, this is the real stuff. Okay, this is what we need for the book. And yet then at the end, he gets so disturbed with what they're doing that he's like, all right, all you get out of here. He just completely fucking like ruins their entire party and everything they're doing. And then he like takes the Ouija board and immediately attempts to saw it in half to figure out why it did the things it did.
Okay, who's doing that?
What is going on?
It's okay, son. It's not real. That's enough! This meeting is over. Come on, everybody out, now!
I mean, in his defense, it was pretty creepy that the Ouija board just like suddenly knew the name of his like deceased daughter and stuff like that. But I don't know. He really he proved exactly why you should, as a 16-year-old, you should not bring your like 45-year-old dad around to hang out with you and your friends,
because they will steal your Ouija board and saw it in half with a miter saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. After witnessing that Ouija boards totally work.
Yes.
Part of his reasoning going up there was like, and I'll be able to see how much this doesn't work, disproving that this stuff ever works.
Joey, as a horror movie expert, what are your thoughts on the Ouija board genre of horror films? And I guess we could all talk about like, what is with the Christian preoccupation with Ouija boards?
Well, you know what's funny is like, I would say, I mean, I've seen a fair share of like Ouija board, or like where somebody, you know, tries to channel something using like cards on a table, or drawing something on the floor, or, you know, using a Ouija board or something. And there's never like the explicitly Christian fear of like messing with the occult or like demonic forces. Like, it's more of just like a very real fear of like, oh no, I've opened up a portal to another side that like, how do I get rid of these ghosts now? Or, but there's nothing that's like, this goes against my religion to do this. Which I feel like they are definitely trying to say in this movie of like, you see what happens if you mess with these occult tools, you little heathens.
Yeah, I actually thought it was kind of clever how this director like took that trope and what you were saying, but did like bring in the Christian aesthetics to say like, yeah, it was like utilizing that horror movie trope, but also saying like, as a Christian, you shouldn't be like playing around with the occult. But also this movie, and similar to the movie we watched last week, Hangman's Curse, it gives you a message that you shouldn't toy with demons, but at the same time, the whole movie is like, wow, sick. Look at these demons that we manifested with the Ouija board. So it kind of like makes it cool at the same time as it tells you that it's forbidden,
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, like, what else are kids supposed to do when you live out in the suburbs? Like you got to get a Ouija board and tell people that what's about to happen is not supposed to leave the room.
Yes.
And then you play with the Ouija board. I mean, come on.
Yeah, so so our protagonist. Oh, actually, one other like horror movie trope I wanted to mention is the fact that he's a novelist.
Totally,
which is a very like Stephen King. Like I love how every Stephen King book is like. So what if there was a novelist who lived in Maine? Okay, like that would be just insane if this were to happen.
Hear me out.
Hear me out here. I am the character of this book, and.
So what if he's like a novelist who used to be a teacher, but now he's an alcoholic,
and he loves AC/DC?
So Greg Evans, he now embarks on a sort of like spiritual discovery, like horror journey after this Ouija board reveals the name of his deceased daughter. It gets him spiraling down a path. He uncovers a lot of skeletons in his closet, and he also has some further communications with this entity that could be his daughter, but we start to have some doubts about that. What's going on next in this movie? What can we say about the skeletons in Greg's closet?
He's got a lot of them.
Yeah.
Kind of an upsetting amount of skeletons.
And not just like, I flirted with my coworker type of skeletons. It's like multiple deaths on his hands.
They were all deaths.
Yeah, this guy killed so many fucking people.
So much blood on his hands.
Some of them he was more to blame than others, but I don't think any of them he directly, like, he didn't murder anybody. There was a lot of people like blaming him for except for, okay, so number one, first off, he got his high school girlfriend pregnant and then abandoned her, and she later committed suicide. I think I think it was implied she overdosed on drugs.
Oh, I thought she had a bullet hole in her head.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. She overdosed on lead. So that one, I think he is the most directly responsible for, because he was a huge asshole to her when she told him they were expecting,
and he said, "We ain't expecting shit."
Yeah. He left her and refused to support her in any way.
Also, she referred to sex as that thing you do to get pregnant.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, when you're doing that thing that can get you pregnant, it's a possibility.
So cool.
I mean, I was scratching. It took me a while to figure out what she was talking about. But
I really think that he couldn't explicitly say that like two underage unmarried people had sex.
Right.
Like, there's no way they would be able to show.
Oh, that's interesting.
This to his youth group.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the same reason why a lot of Christians are against even talking about safe sex, because it implies that you can have sex outside of marriage or earlier than you should.
Right.
Right. But yeah, so, he didn't say anything about, getting an abortion or anything, but that wasn't even an option for them. Like she said, hey, I got pregnant. We're having this kid. And, he ran. He said, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Well, he made the decision within like 30 seconds of hearing the news.
Yep.
Yeah. She didn't even actually finish telling him she was pregnant. And he was already like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So number 2, a friend of his comes by his house to haunt him and explains essentially that they were out drinking at a party and the guy let his friend drive home drunk and he died in a car accident.
But not only that, beforehand, he basically stopped him from going up at church to get saved.
He said it's really simple to get to heaven. All you had to do is accept what Jesus Christ did on the cross, and you'd be saved by...
Why are you telling me this?
I came to you as my friend and asked you what you thought. But you blew it off, and you made me feel so stupid for even asking.
Sorry, man. I didn't know it was that big a deal to you.
I was going to change my life that night. But you told me to go on that party.
That I remember.
I left that party so wasted. And you let me drive home. Why, Greg? Why'd you keep me from learning the truth? Now I'm in hell, tormented, day and night. It's so horrible. The weeping, the gnashing of teeth, the constant and endless screaming. It's all your fault, right?
So his friend had started going to church just because he was attracted to other teens that he was looking for a date at church, basically. And from going there, though, the pastor said some things that got him thinking, and he went to his good buddy Greg and said, Greg, the pastor got me thinking. What do you think? And Greg pretty much just scoffed at him and was like, get the fuck out of here with that shit. And so he didn't take it any further. He did not commit his life to Christ or follow up with the pastor on that. And then shortly thereafter, they were at a party together. Greg, I guess, both convinced him to get wasted and that it didn't matter if he drove home. And he died.
All right. Well, at a certain point, you got to start thinking for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he is absolved of this one.
Okay.
Is he a bad influence? Absolutely. But, this guy's got to
take a little personal responsibility.
He was letting other people live his life for him,
Yeah.
Yeah, if Greg writes in a novel to jump off a bridge, do you do it?
If Greg tells you to jump off a trampoline, would you do it?
Too soon.
Which brings us to the next one. I guess this was the first one that was introduced, right?
His daughter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's go into it in a little more depth. That another, body that Greg may or may not have on his hands is actually his own daughter, the one who we sort of spoke to with the Ouija board. Believe it or not, she perished in a tragic trampoline-related accident. It's really sad. I hate this part.
It was really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There was something about it being like a trampoline accident that was kind of poetically perfect. It was like this very like suburban, they have this huge backyard that's completely grass, just a grass field as far as the eye can see. And there's just like a trampoline in it. And, he stepped away for 1 second and she jumped off and died. Very sad.
Yeah, broke her neck.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did she land on her head or something? Or
That's what I thought.
So that's another one that he murdered.
Yep.
Yeah. That one's not really, it was an accident. He should have been watching, but let the kids play.
Right.
Let the kids play.
There's a reason why most trampolines you see now have those walls, those big mesh walls.
It's remember the memes that old people post about how when I was a kid, we used to run around and scrape our knees and stay out after dark and chase fireflies.
Right. But 45% of them perished in trampoline accidents.
Yeah, but they didn't have Facebook.
They lived. They lived before they died.
That's true. But and then they all came back as ghosts through a Ouija board. But so then the fourth body that Greg potentially has on his hands is his own mother. He was going to come over to her house and then canceled.
For his birthday, right?
For his own birthday, to help her hang up the bird feeder. And he canceled at the last minute. And she was like, well, I'm going to hang up this goddamn thing myself. She fucking died.
Yeah, she fell off the ladder.
She went up like 2 stories worth of deck stairs. It's like the highest deck I've ever seen. But she went up
That's a good point.
Yeah.
This like really
And
tall
then she
deck.
climbed the ladder.
Yeah, and then she set up the ladder on the edge of the deck to hang a bird feeder, as Scott pointed out, in the most ridiculous of places where you would never even see birds in a like.
She hung it on a tree, like at a high part of a tall tree. Like that is where the birds go naturally. That's why you get a bird feeder, so they don't just go up there.
Right.
I think she died of old age before she hit the ground. That's how high up she was.
She died of a broken heart because her son.
She was actually, you know what happened, and you might have missed this. It was in the deleted scenes during the credits. But she got up there and she got on the ladder and she like looked over in the window and there was like a sexy co-ed taking off her bra, and she actually, her erection pushed her away from the house and she fell, and that's how she died.
She died of being too
So
horny.
sad.
But you know what was also fucked up is that she actually had coronavirus while this was happening. So
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what the cause of death is listed as, but I mean, I guess.
She caught it as she
guess
was
we'll-
falling to the ground.
Yeah.
she got it.
Actually,
in
a
midair.
further autopsy showed that she died of bird flu, strangely enough.
Shouldn't get so close to those feeders. So this is a very troubled man with a lot on his conscience, and
A lot of trauma, a lot of guilt, a lot
Yes.
of shame, and it seems like he's not really processing these emotions. I don't know, but they never really talk about it. It's never like a thing in the story where he tells his wife, hey, I'm like really been thinking about these things and they're really bothering me.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be affected by them at all. He's just like hanging around the house in his sleeveless black t-shirt, wanting some hanky-panky with the wife. He never seems depressed or like hung up on these things.
yeah,
He did a pretty good job burying them.
yeah.
And this marks Christian movie number, I don't know, more than half we've seen, where like if people just had decent mental health care and like saw a therapist, then some of these issues would be a little bit better taken care of before they hit a climax.
Yeah, the guy just clearly has severe PTSD. And ghosts. I guess ghosts is the other big thing that he has.
Right.
GTSD.
So this guy's being haunted, and he finally decides it might be time to talk to a spiritual advisor on the matter. So he goes on Gobble, which is this universe's version of Google. He goes on Gobble.com, and he gets in contact with a pastor. What's the deal with this pastor? Does he like an expert in ghost related matters?
What's the deal with the pastor?
Yes, he is an expert in the supernatural.
Okay.
He has a
Spiritual
website
warfare.
about it. Yes. The site he found said never ever burn a Ouija board, which he had
Really?
just done,
Oh,
'cause he was
yeah.
freaked out by it. Rightfully freaked out by it. Oh, one thing we didn't mention, so when he tries the Ouija board himself to contact his daughter himself, she says, "Help me, kill yourself."
Right.
That was pretty scary.
These ghosts keep telling him to
Yeah.
kill himself. Also, his friend, like, you know, his friend that he died in the drunk driving accident. He also gets like this deep demon voice when he's talking to our main character, and he's like, "Kill yourself and take my place."
Kill yourself and take my place. You owe me. Ow!
So basically, he's being tormented by these like horrible thoughts, and they're urging him to commit suicide, which is very scary.
Yeah. When he first communicates with his daughter via the Ouija board, or he thinks he's communicating with her, she says, "Help me," and he says, "How can I help?" And she says, "Kill yourself," and that was just hilarious.
So he's taken initiative to get some spiritual help for this situation. He links up with a pastor who will become a key moment in the final part of the movie. He also hooks up with these ghost hunters who we've been sort of watching their like frivolous adventures throughout the film, wondering why we're getting these two stories at once. But finally, they come together. Greg offers the ghost hunters, whose work I guess he saw on TV or something like that, or on the internet.
Probably on like GooTube or something.
Yeah, on GooTube. And
that's the Adam Sandler video site.
and he offers them a grand total of $3,000 to come to his own house and figure out what's going on with his haunting. So let's break down the final moments of this film, the climactic and very scary demon scene that closes off Paranormal.
Yeah, so they're in the house and they're in night vision mode, and we see this true face of the demon, which is just a guy.
Yeah,
and like a guy doing a scary voice, and he's frowning. And then in comes the priest or the preacher he met with earlier, who tells the demon to go away, and that stops it. That turns off the running water and the stove tops that were turned on by the
rudely
demon.
Turned on. Just to be wasteful.
Yeah.
But interestingly, before that though, obviously the ghost hunters were in a situation all of a sudden that they had never been in before, where they're confronted by a real scary ghost that they can see very clearly. And Chris frantically grabs for his production teammate that does most of the work, is pretty clear. He grabs his cross and tries to get the demon to leave, and the demon's like, on what authority? And so that's why it's really important for the preacher to come in and rebuke the demon himself, because he's a Christian and he has God's authority behind him. He has Jesus Christ's authority behind him.
I command you to let him go! Release him now! On whose authority? On the authority of Jesus Christ, the Son of God! Let him go!
He's not just some like little teenager who has their own little ghost hunting thing going on.
Yeah, he's not a poser. And they even got called out for that at the end, because they were like checking the footage saying that they were famous, but it was all gone. And that's when the priest says, people shouldn't really be seeing this stuff.
Dude, this is gonna change everything. Oh, man. Oh, no. What? You gotta be kidding me.
What? What's wrong?
The footage, bro. It's gone.
What?
Completely blank. What do you mean blank?
Gentlemen, we walk by faith, not by sight. Perhaps the world isn't meant to see this just yet.
Right. And I also want to point out there is actually a scriptural tie-in for this final scene of the film, because when we do actually meet the demon, we find out that the demon is based on the story from the Bible in the chapter 5 of the Gospel of Mark, where Jesus restores a demon-possessed man. This is the famous section of the Bible where the quote, "My name is Legion, for we are many," comes from. And in the film, the preacher asks the demon's name, and I believe he says, "We are Legion."
What are you?
We are Legion, for we are many.
And that is a direct reference to this part in the Bible, because I guess there's sort of a main theme in this whole film that kind of ties it together, that ghosts aren't real. And actually the pastor says it at one point. The pastor who Greg consults with says it at one point, that ghosts in the traditional Hollywood secular sense are not real. However, there are supernatural entities that, can interface with humans, and there are angels and there are demons.
Angels? Demons? Spiritual warfare is very real, Greg. Very real.
What about ghosts? Do they exist?
Are you sure you want to know that?
Yeah, of course.
Well, technically, the idea of ghost in the traditional Hollywood secular sense, no.
and it is possible to have a supernatural experience, positively or negatively. In this case, negatively, if you try to, tamper with demonic forces. And they drew sort of like a biblical parallel between that part of the Bible and the end of this film here.
Don't mess around with Ouija boards.
Nope.
He was fine until the Ouija board thing happened, right?
Yeah, he'd forgotten that he'd killed all those people.
Right.
Until the Ouija board reminded him.
He fucking killed like 5 people.
It was so messed up.
Yo, man, in today's cancel culture, you cannot forget that stuff.
Do y'all think that it is his son's fault that all these problems started up for even having the seance with the Ouija board in the first place and therefore allowing the demon in?
Yeah, I mean, the mom warned him.
Yeah.
The mom warned him. She said, don't be messing around with that stuff. And he said, I'm just going to check it out.
Yeah, and she asked Greg to handle it.
Don't mess with Ouija boards or else they'll remind you of all the awful things you've done in the past.
Yes. I would say this movie offers yet another unexplored reason why Ouija boards should not be tampered with. And it is because it will make you remember things that you didn't intend to. Now, what I would love to do before we end our discussion here is I would love to quickly lead us in actual boys Bible study and breeze through the Paranormal Bible Study and Discussion Guide. Is that cool with you guys? Are you ready for a little post Paranormal Bible study?
I'm way into it.
Okay, I'm going to lead us, you guys. Let's go. This discussion guide is by Dylan Burrows. You've seen the movie. Now talk about it. Take time on your own or with a few friends to investigate how the issues highlighted in Paranormal influence your life. I don't know why every Bible study has to fucking like make all these like artificial like discussion sections, but it's like each topic is divided into 3 key components, starting points in the word. Like when you guys, when you, Julian, and Scott and our friend Nathan Faustin did the Breaking the Press study guide, and like everything was like the warm up, like the post game, like all the basketball
it was like explaining all the terminology, which didn't
like,
make any sense and was so unnecessary.
It was so convoluted.
It was like they had bought the like size of the paper before they had really figured out all the words they wanted to put in it. So they just had to like add in all this filler.
And lacing up your basketball shoes is opening your Bible.
Yes.
I don't know. It's ridiculous.
So, this one has a couple sections. I'm just going to read like the main discussion question from each, but this has a section called The Sighting, and it cites these words from Matthew 14. It talks about when they saw Jesus walking on the lake. There's that scene in Matthew where Jesus walks on the lake, and they don't know who it is at first. They were terrified.
Stranger on the lake.
They were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." The apostles believed ghosts exist, as did many in biblical times. Many today continue to believe in the existence of such things. The Bible does not deny that there is something out there, but rather clearly defines supernatural beings as either angels or demons. What do you think? Are ghosts real or not? And we kind of discussed this, but just on a personal level, 3 of you guys, are ghosts real or not?
Yes, the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
Holy ghost hunters.
No, I don't believe in ghosts. I love the concept and I love ghosts in movies and ghost stories, but I do not believe that there are trillions of ghosts just floating around that we can't see.
Right.
Yeah, I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in curses.
Like shit and fuck?
Yeah.
You believe that like maybe if you eat the wrong kind of pie, you might get cursed and might become maybe like thinner over time. Like that's something that could possibly happen to someone.
But a ghost, that's silly.
Right.
A ghost is silly. But do ghosts believe in us?
Now there's what we should be asking.
I never understood like you never see like a basketball player from the 70s ghost or like a fat ghost. It's always just like a old Civil War ghost or like a Victorian child, Yeah,
why is that what everyone sees? I don't get it.
Just because there's no representation of these ghosts doesn't mean they don't exist. Like these are just unrealistic ghost standards. Real ghosts have curves.
The next section of the Bible study is called The Assignments. Best-selling author Greg Evans finds himself frustrated at his inability to write a sequel to his previous hit book. However, he soon decides to investigate his son's fascination with the paranormal. Do you think it is a good idea to research topics related to evil and the paranormal? Why or why not? The three of you answer, and then I'll tell you the Bible's answer.
What the correct answer is.
Yes, I will. I will. This has the correct answer. I will tell you. But first,
Okay.
What do you think? Should you be able to research evil?
No, I don't think so. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I think the more you look into these things, the more you're just inviting drama into your life.
Sure.
I think it is a good idea, and I think just don't have adjacently murdered 4 people before you start.
Yeah.
Not setting yourself up for success, really.
Yeah.
I think you can research evil topics, but you should probably avoid watching like videos on rotten.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't make the same mistake I did.
When I was 13.
Right. Yeah, well, so first of all, the verses that this study guide uses to make its point, apparently 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, 20 through 22 says, test everything, hold on to the good, avoid every kind of evil. Which seems a little open-ended. Basically, I guess they're trying to say here that Christians were not to avoid tough topics, but to test them and then to avoid those that were proven evil. So I guess what this is trying to say is we've proven that Ouija boards are evil. We've proven that the occult is evil. So there's no real need for you to do your own research on that. You know what I mean? It's you already know what the occult holds. Don't try to code it in the guise of you're testing it. But then that sort of leads to an interesting case on these types of movies in general, just a meta conversation. Is Paranormal, is it a Christian movie? I know it purports to be, but is it actually successful in its mission to create a Christian alternative to paranormal activity? Or is it just inviting those messages into your life by invoking the same occult imagery that it's denouncing? What do you think?
That's a good question, because if you are taking this movie seriously and are well, I'd never really thought about it this way exactly, you probably would be doing more research because of it. And the hero, the very clear hero in this movie, is the preacher who had obviously done a lot of his own research in order to be able to be in a position to rescue them.
Yeah.
How do you present the topic without making the topic, without glorifying the topic? You know what I mean? Which is what they did here.
You reap what you sow.
Well, back to your initial question too, Ash. I guess what would make this more of a Christian movie than, say, The Exorcist?
No, that's kind of true. I mean, well, first of all, Exorcist is a beautiful film that examines religious questions like that. I actually do think in ways that The Exorcist could be an important film for Christians to see. It's very powerful and does investigate certain topics like that, even though, it wouldn't fly in these circles.
Faith does save them in the end of that movie, though, not to get too off track of this movie. So,
well, yeah, it's every one of these movies, Exorcism of Emily Rose and stuff. It's always faith saves them.
It's never a gun or a weapon.
I guess this one is more rooted in Bible verses, though, in actual scripture. So, yes, it is a Christian movie.
Well, moving on to the study guide here. Ouija flashback is the next section. When Greg observes the use of a Ouija board by his son and his friends, he hears the name of his deceased daughter. This surprise turns him to anger and on the search for answers. His involvement raises the question, is it okay for a Christian to use a Ouija board? Why or why not? Just a quick open-ended answer to you guys. What do you think? Should a Christian use a Ouija board?
Christian with the Ouija board, what will he do?
Isn't that old kid? That's that kid's book. If you give a Christian a Ouija board,
right?
Yeah, I agree with Joey on this one. No, leave it to the more secular crowd.
Yeah,
because they don't believe in demons, so they're not going to get any results, good or bad.
Yeah, well, I say yes. A Christian should use a Ouija board because then nothing will happen. And then they'll be like, hey, maybe maybe some other stuff I've been taught is made up.
You think that the Ouija board could be a red pilling tactic?
Yeah, it's my apostate answer.
The definitely no.
I don't think a Christian should use a Ouija board. I don't know. I think that it's like I know it's like a pop cultural thing, and like I know it's not like, you know, isn't nearly as like in depth of an occult practice as, you know, maybe Wicca or, you know, something like that.
I can say that when I was a Christian, I never would have used a Ouija board.
Same here.
And I definitely at any age in my Christian life, I would have not used it.
Go find another toy. Get a ball with a cup and a string connecting the two. Get a hoop with a stick. There's plenty of fun things for Christians to do.
Right.
That do not involve the occult.
All this talk makes me want to look up how Ouija boards got started, because that seems like a really weird toy to market towards kids in the 70s or whenever the hell it came out, you know?
Well, no, you know, I actually read this really cool book about like the history of games, and it was I don't, you know, remember it by heart, but I do remember that like the Ouija board was created around like the turn of the 20th century. So it's been around for like 100 years, and you know, it's sort of like, I don't know, I'm just open the Wikipedia now, but like Ouija is like a copyrighted term by Hasbro, and it's just interesting because it's like it has such a place in like the imagination of popular culture, but it's like, you know, it's a board game, like,
yeah,
but
right.
I don't know, it's probably like one of the best like branding of an item ever. It's like people associate Ouija boards with the occult, but it's like, you know, it's a board game. It's very interesting.
You know what a fun thing to try would be? Go to wherever the Parker brothers died and use the Ouija board and see if it'll the what's the thing that sits on the pointer that sits on the Ouija board? See if when you inquire about them, if it just goes to Parker brothers instead of spelling it out.
Well, didn't you? Wasn't one of you telling me that like the person who invented the Ouija board like has a grave that's like a working Ouija board?
Oh, that's awesome.
I hope that's true.
Aware of that.
Elijah Bond's a Ouija board grave in Baltimore, Maryland. The man who first patented the Ouija board rests in peace beneath a headstone that playfully reflects that achievement. He actually there is a Ouija board gravestone that the inventor of the Ouija board has. It looks fucking sick. I just Googled it. Apparently it's in Baltimore, Maryland, or in that area. So you can actually make a pilgrimage similar to what you were saying. So, you know, a very interesting piece of pop culture that's been around actually for a long time. But I would have to say, as a Christian myself, no, Christians shouldn't be using it.
No.
But and that's certainly what the study guide purports. In fact, it basically says that as Christians, any attempt to communicate with evil spirits expresses a lack of confidence in Christ to answer the needs in our lives. The proper approach is to avoid any appearance of evil and depend on the far greater power found in the Holy Spirit. There's a couple questions in this guide. I'm just going to skip to one more in the interest of time, and we'll talk about it. Lastly, showdown. The end of Paranormal results in a showdown between the evil in Greg's house versus Greg and the investigation team and Reverend Cobb. Do Christians really possess this kind of power over evil spirits? What do you think? Why or why not? So, you know, we often see the trope of like the person who has strong faith who encounters these like very real evil spirits. And do you think if you pray, or if you're just like a pastor or a reverend or whatever, that like you could literally rebuke the devil on a physical plane if you encountered him? What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even just the faith of a mustard seed could move a mountain.
That's true. That's a very good point.
If you really believe, why can't you move a demon?
That's so true.
And I like mustard, so. So if you banish the devil, wouldn't you feel guilty about it?
Wait, you'd feel guilty about because like other people can't do that?
I don't know. I just, you know, I don't know. I just feel like a preacher, somebody might have second thoughts, like, maybe I should have just gave him a chance. I should have banished him.
Turn the other cheek.
Yeah, turn the other butt cheek.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a slippery slope. Like, yeah, I mean, and what the study guide purports, which I think is true, is that, like, if you have God on your side, you don't have to fear demons. You don't have to fear the evil in the world. But I also think that being so cocky as to think that, like, because I'm a Christian, like, I'm going to, I have power and ability to, like, play on the spiritual realm. Like, I think that that's, like, a bad premise. Like, you shouldn't be just like, well, I'm a pastor, so if anyone comes to me and says they have a demon, like, I'm going to have the authority to cast it out. Like, I think you should basically just, like, as Quentin Tarantino famously said, I think you should just reject the hypothesis that a demon could have power over you in general and not feel like you have to muscle one in some situation in your life,
Yeah, they had two pretty good characters to show this dynamic too. The preacher was obviously very well read and very well prepared for this, but certainly wasn't going around searching for trouble.
Right.
Whereas Chris, the very cocky ghost hunter, was going around looking for this, and then once he saw a demon straight on, didn't know what to do.
Right. Well, those were some selections from the Paranormal Official Bible Study Guide. I am so glad that we all got to watch this together with our good friend Joey Gallimore of Camera Viscera, and also follow along as good Boys Bible Study members and actually do a literal Bible study afterward. So that's pretty cool. But before we get out of here, we should log our official Boys Bible Study rating. What did we think of this film? Any final thoughts and ratings of Paranormal?
I'll give it 5 horny old ladies out of 5 horny old ladies falling off ladders.
I must remind that this woman that's your personal headcanon of this film.
Yeah.
As long as you acknowledge that, I accept your rating of 5 horny old ladies. In the erotic fan fiction you've written about the movie Paranormal, that is her cause of death. When in fact, as we all know, it was neglect by natal neglect. And bird feeders,
There's 2 sides to every story, my friend.
I really enjoyed this movie. I think I say this kind of a lot, but it's something I focus on a lot. The pacing was great. This is the 3rd time I watched it, and it really flew along. I really appreciate Matt Mitchell's devotion to horror movies, and I guess the Bible too, to an extent, but he really has a passion for this stuff, and it shows. I want to watch all of his movies. As far as a rating goes, I'm going to give this movie 1 delicious rejected plate of cookies by your mom, who always interrupts your seance.
I echo what Scott was saying, and I mean, if I was going to, I feel like Christian horror is like the best genre. If you're going to watch a Christian movie, make it a Christian horror movie, especially by Matt Mitchell. And with that, I give it 5 horny old ladies.
Yeah. She wasn't horny. She only had sex one time to have her son that abandoned her in her bird feeder, thus causing her to have a tragic
that's why she's
got
to try again. If at first you don't succeed.
I'll actually give it 2 sleeveless shirts.
That's right. That ghost hunter's vest was like one of the most tragic Christian fashion statements of our whole podcast so far, I think. 0 sleeves you gave it. The old 0 sleeves rating.
I give it 0 sleeves, which is actually the best rating.
Yes. Well, I also think that Paranormal was a magnificent film. A big fan of Cross Shadow Productions and their dedication to the horror genre. Sure, I have some mixed feelings on like if this premise is like even Christian to begin with, despite their best efforts. I'm just still not 100% sure, but I still enjoy it. And hey, if that makes me a sinner, then I repent. But I'm going to have to give this film 4 out of 4 people killed by our protagonist, Greg Evans. Let us remember that in various ways, his actions killed his daughter, his mother, his best friend, and his the first mother of his now deceased daughter. So he really has a terrible track record, and it's very interesting that it took a Ouija board to bring this back up to the surface. But here we are, Paranormal by Cross Shadow Productions. Joey Gallimore, thank you so much for joining us and watching this Christian horror film today. Where can we find you?
You can find me, Camera Viscera, on Twitter and Instagram and stuff, and Movie Time that I do with Scott.
Yes,
we got one of those coming up.
Yeah,
for,
please promo that.
October. Scott, when is it? The 30th?
It is October 30th. Yes, a Friday.
And what is that, guys?
We're gonna show a bunch of shot-on-video horror movies, or mostly horror movies. Yeah.
They will be Halloween appropriate, to be sure.
Yeah, you guys have been doing your Movie Time screenings in Los Angeles, now online, specializing in shot-on-video films. Not just Christian. That is correct. Not just Christian. That's just Christian. That's
we accept all denominations.
As long as you got a VHS, camera.
That's right.
But we'll definitely be putting a link to that in the episode description. But definitely join Movie Time on the Everything is Terrible Twitch channel on Friday, October 30th. Also, We Boys Bible Study will have our free screening also on the Everything is Terrible Twitch on Sunday, November 1st. So please join us there. We'll also be announcing our patrons-only November live stream soon. The rest of our Boys Bible Study plugs, if you enjoyed this episode and our other free ones, please check out patreon.com/Boys Bible Study. Subscribe at the $1 tier to get into our patron live streams, or subscribe at $5 to get our bonus episodes. We do at least 2 every month that you can only get there. And if you subscribe at the $20 tier, you are named one of our patron saints, and we shout you out. In fact, right now, we'd love to shout out Nicole, Marissa, and Russell. Thank you so much for being patron saints of Boys Bible Study. On behalf of myself, Ash, my co-hosts Scott and Julian, and our guest today, Joey Gallimore, a.k.a. Camera Viscera, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And with you.
And with me.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day